Alrighty, good afternoon. Dana Young here with Preschool Promise. Just just a couple seconds here while we let everyone in. So just a moment. And Angela, let me know when you're ready.
Just pulling up our slideshow here. Okay, Dana, if you can see that, we're ready to go.
Alrighty, good afternoon. My name is Dana Young. I'm the Preschool Promise Program Manager here for the division. I have a couple of colleagues here with me, so I'll go ahead and we'll do some quick introductions. Angela, go ahead.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining. Angela Stinson, Communication and Engagement Coordinator for Preschool Promise.
And Michael.
Hi folks, I'm Michael Connor. We're at the Early Learning Division. I help on our training and technical assistance system. Happy to be here.
Alrighty, well, thank you for joining us and taking some time out of your busy day. I know that many of you are starting your programs or your own kiddos are starting school.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny. Okay, I have to run. I could talk to you forever. Okay, I'll talk to you.
Sorry, if you can please mute yourselves, that will be awesome. And just a gentle reminder there, this meeting is getting recorded, and then after the meeting later on this week, we'll go ahead and send all of that meeting materials, including that recording as well. So next slide. Alrighty, so some of the objectives for this meeting, so specifically,
But we need to talk about it.
So specifically for this meeting, our audience is going to be current Preschool Promise grantees. So grantees that have been providing Preschool Promise services in the 21-22 program year. If you are new to Preschool Promise, welcome. You're definitely welcome to go ahead and stay in the meeting. We are going to have a separate onboarding meeting for our new grantees that are going to be joining us. It looks like we have around 83 grantees that are going to be joining Preschool Promise. So you're welcome to go ahead and stay, but we are going to be having a more in-depth onboarding meeting for you later on. And if you're a current grantee and you want to attend the meeting, you're definitely welcome. You're just going to have an extended version of the training there. Alrighty, so during this meeting, we're going to focus on a lot of just what to expect this coming program year with Preschool Promise as a current grantee. So we'll go ahead and talk about insurance, talk about some of our grant manual updates, technical assistance plan, enhanced ECHRS evaluations and observations there. And then just some of the things that you may want to keep in mind as far as just business as usual, right? Like the payment process, our communication methods or efforts there, waivers, COVID-19. And then we're going to spend a little bit of some time talking about like procurement, funding, expansion, and amendments. So please use the chat to go ahead and ask any questions. As always, if we have some time at the end of the meeting, we'll go ahead and answer some questions. If not, you'll go ahead and see those answers when we send out all that materials for the meeting. Okay, next slide. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Angela to go ahead and get us started. Thank you.
Thanks, Dana. Yeah, so for those of you who are continuing with us, you're familiar with our insurance requirements. But if you missed it, those insurance requirements did change as of July 1st. Some of the changes were that automobile liability shifted. It used to be programs that were transporting 1 to 9 children would have a 2 million combined single limit. Now it's 1 to 15. So that's a little easier on our, programs that are between 9 and 15 children, usually our CF programs. Sexual abuse and molestation liability, that was previously 2 million. Now in-home programs will have a 1 million annual aggregate for physical abuse and sexual molestation insurance. Professional liability insurance will be required. Previously, there's a little caveat about if somebody was holding professional licensure. We did get some guidance from DAS about shifting that to make it required for all preschool promise grantees. So that we don't anticipate that being a big impact, but or at least the professional liability we don't anticipate being a big financial impact, but please, feel free to provide feedback. We are hopeful that the first two changes will reduce some of the barriers that we were seeing, particularly for in-home programs. We know that these aren't going to resolve every concern related to insurance, unfortunately, but we are hoping this will make it more accessible and more affordable for in-home providers. We're continually working on finding that balance of making sure that we're protecting the public investment, but we're also adhering to our mixed delivery model and making sure that in-home providers, have access to this grant just as centers and school districts do. So thank you for being along with us as we continue to work on balancing those priorities. And if you have any questions about insurance, you're always welcome to email us at psp@ode.oregon.gov. Second, we want to talk about the grant manual. So last year, 21-22, there were some pretty significant changes to the grant manual. This year is much less obvious. They're pretty subtle changes. And one we're going to talk about for a while today. A few things to note are that the 22-23 grant manual includes a column for allowable and disallowable uses of startup funding. So if you were one of the grantees that applied for additional slots this year and you were awarded, you'll want to check that column in the grant manual to see what those extra startup funds can be used for. I just wanted to call out that the grant manual has shifted from, our email address shifted from psp@state.or.us to ode.oregon.gov. But if you're used to @state.or.us, no need to panic. IT has it so that's routing directly to us regardless, but just wanted to call it out so you're not anxious about that change. And then the 22-23 grant manual adds a very important piece, which is that preschool promise grantees will co-create a written technical assistance plan with CCR and our TA, technical assistance staff, and submit those plans to ELD, and participation will be monitored. So that is why we have our special guest speaker, Mike O'Connor, on today. He's going to talk to us more about that later on in the presentation. I just wanted to plug, since you'll receive these slides later, the 22-23 contact form. I did check in just before the meeting and saw that the vast majority of continuing grantees have submitted this already. So thank you so much for doing that. But if you haven't had a chance yet, please do fill that out. We want to make sure that we have any of your new staff members that you want getting access to the SharePoint site, anyone that you want receiving the weekly preschool promise bulletin. If any staff changes have happened and there's somebody else who is managing insurance or a different part of your program, we want to be aware of those at the start of the year. So please do take the time to fill that out as soon as you can. And then a quick plug before I turn it over to Michael. Hopefully everyone has seen this lovely book at some point. This is the Preschool Promise Quality Requirements Playbook, otherwise known as Preschool Promise Playbook for short. And this is a guide for grantees on what the preschool promise quality requirements look like in practice. So really breaking down the different quality requirements in the preschool promise grant manual that pertain to program quality and what we mean when we say that, what that looks like in practice. So the lovely thing about being 3 years in now is, and knocking on wood over here, like having COVID a little bit in our rearview mirror, is we can perhaps start thinking about some of these things and really focusing on where you want your program to grow, what's next for you as a business, as an early learning program. And this is a great resource document as you start making those considerations about your program's future. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Michael to talk about the technical assistance agreement plan.
Thanks, Angela and everyone. Thank you if you're on camera. That is really helpful. Appreciate it. That's for you. I see you, Lisa Harnish. Do you want me to share, Angela? We'll edit this part out of the recording. Do you want me to share or you want to share? How do you want to do it?
I have it up if you need it, but if you have it ready to go, I'll just turn it over and you can go
I
for
have it ready to go.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. All right, let's do it. I'm going to make sure that I'm not sharing my eBay. That's not for this meeting. Yes. I'm Michael Connor. I work on our training and technical assistance system for our public preschool. So in short, my job is to help you get even better. That's what I do, is work on the system to help you improve. And in order to do that, I'm going to ignore the waiting room, so let somebody else wrangle that. And we've got some supports this year, even more supports. So let's talk about them. And one of those supports is the technical assistance coordination agreement. Easy for you to say. It's a tool to support you working with technical assistance staff from the Child Care Resource and Referral Agency that works with you. So let's go through that agreement. Just starting by kind of mentioning, we have a system, as you know, of Child Care Resource and Referral agencies whose part of their job is to support quality in preschool promise grantees. They have other jobs, but that's one of their big jobs. They have staff who are assigned to coach early educators to improve classroom quality, and they have quality improvement specialists who consult with grantee leaders like yourselves on how to improve the quality of your programming. And as grantees, you're participating in required training and technical assistance. That's part of the agreement. And that language at the bottom there is for grantees, whoever coaches your early educators, there's required training. And so if you've got your own coaching staff within your agency, that's important for us to talk about, because there's required training and technical assistance, professional development for those people. So you might be asking, hey, Michael, which staff are taking the lead in creating these TA agreements? I'm so glad you asked that, because that's what I want to talk about next. The quality specialists from the Child Care Resource and Referral, they're the lead person on creating agreements with grantees. And coaches can participate as needed, and you'll see why they might want to participate. But it's the quality specialist is the lead. And then within your agency, there are a couple roles that might be involved in creating the agreements. One is the employer owner of the grantee, and the other is what we would call an instructional leader. That's the person who's responsible for the teaching and learning for children's outcomes and so forth. Oftentimes they're the same person, that's fine. But we want to make sure we know who both of those people are, the employer owner and the instructional leader, if they're different people. So the agreements will do a couple of things that we've been hearing are needed. One is to be clear, so everybody knows, well, who's the quality specialist who's working with your program? Who from your program is working with the quality specialist? We haven't always had that clear, and we want to make sure that everybody knows at the start of the year, okay, you're Pat, I'm Joe, we're working together, we're going to figure this out together. And then also we want to make sure that we're clear on who is going to be coaching the early educators, the folks who work with young children, to improve their teaching, improve the teaching and learning. If you've got your own coach, that's great. We want to know who that person is, because we want to get them connected with the professional development that we provide for coaches. And if you're going to be partnering with the CCR&R coach, then you want to know who that person is, and get going on some planning with that person. The agreement itself does a couple of things. You're going to be developing, explaining your program goals. So if I'm consulting with you on how to improve your program, it's important for me to know what's your program all about. Oh, your program wants to make sure that all the children are ready for kindergarten and are good at playing the ukulele and speak fluent Bulgarian. Maybe that's your program. I would need to know that, right? Because I can't just consult you with a generic help. I want to know about your program. And so part of the agreement involves articulating, well, what's our program about? And it's especially, I could fire up the annotator. We paid extra for that. Let me do that. Yeah, wait, that's not it. It's right here. There we go. Ooh, look at that. Especially goals connected to teaching and learning, because that's one of our big focuses for our training and technical assistance is what's going on in the classrooms like that. Also, if you've got your own, well, we want to know about together this talk. We want you and your quality specialist to talk together about your training and professional development that you do within your own agency. I'm not monitoring the chat, Angela. Clearly running the spotlight, the annotator is enough for me. So you just jump in if there's something I should tackle.
Yeah. So far, so good, Michael. But yeah, please, anyone feel free to.
It's early yet, though. It's early. We don't want to, yeah. So you might be wondering what we do. So we have various teams in the early learning division that collaborate, and the program team, that's Dana and Angela and others, are going to be monitoring participation by y'all in these. We want to make sure that if you're stuck, if you can't get an agreement, if you haven't heard from your CCR&R, they're going to problem solve with you about that. And then the professional learning team, which is where I sit, we'll monitor participation by the CCR&Rs. If they're saying they can't get a hold of you or they can't come to an agreement, then we'll problem solve that. And then we also have a partnership with the Early Learning System Initiative, colleagues at Oregon State University, go Beavers. They'll look at the agreements with us and think, okay, so what kind of supports might you want to offer for coaches in your region? Or what kind of trainings might we want to coordinate with the CCR&R for early educators in school districts who are working on these kinds of goals? They'll look at the content and think about what professional development might be provided based on what's going on with your agreements. How will this work in practice? So the quality specialists at the CCR&R will reach out, they'll connect with grantees like you to start making that agreement. So you're going to want to look for that phone call, that email that says, hi, I'm the quality specialist. You're in my cohort. I want to work with you on getting our agreement in good shape. The template that will be part of the form, there's a form, it's a Smartsheet form. It serves as a framework for conversation. So it's not about filling out the form, it's having a conversation and then recording the important information that develops in the conversation. So you may find that more than one conversation is required to really think these things through. That's fine. You may come and say, we're working on our program goals. We're not quite ready to say what they are. Can we just talk about them? And then I'll go back and you might want to go back and talk to your staff or your board and get those refined. That's fine. We want you to have a real conversation more than fill out the form. And completing that form will automatically share the content with ELD and the Early Learning System Initiative, ELSI, at Oregon State University. The form does say we can't get it to an agreement. So everybody on the CCR&R side will fill out an agreement, fill out the form for every grantee that's in their region. But if folks get stuck or they can't find an agreement, then the form will indicate that and then we'll follow up. So how is this rolling out? Well, it's rolling out at this meeting, for example. So far, I think it's going really well. This is the first bullet is you all. We're introducing you to the agreement process. We're going to be providing materials to you. You'll get access to a blank form so you can kind of see what that's about. And it's being done in English and Spanish. At some point, Angela and Dana, we'll ask you on a monthly report, hey, have you completed your agreement? And you'll have a chance to check yes or check no and say why, something like that. That'll happen soonly. We're going to talk about this with CCR&R leaders on the 15th of September. So Lisa Harnish can't talk about this until then. It's embargoed. No, she can talk about it. Mentor coaches will review the TA agreement process with Preschool Promise coaches in September. So that at the community practice for Preschool Promise coaches in the CCR&R. Or if you've got your own coaches, we definitely want them to be at that community practice. It's part of our grant agreement that they attend and participate and so forth. So that's a place where we'll talk about this TA agreement with coaches. I am currently facilitating the Preschool Promise Quality Specialist community practice, easy for you to say. That will be reviewed together on the 12th. That's next week, Monday. We're distributing that smart sheet to the CCR&Rs for staff to complete with grantees. And we'll distribute that soonly. It's just being finalized right now. And just to put it out there, that our target for complete agreements is within 30 days of when you start your program. And I understand everybody has everything they need to start their program today. No, I'm just kidding. I know that there's delays. But as soon as you get going, the friendly, loving clock will start ticking on giving you kind of 30 days to work that out with your CCR&R staff when they contact you. So I think, is it purple? Oh, what's next? So for you, grantees, dig into the quality playbook. Now's the time to really refresh and think about it with your staff. And it's a good time to reach out to the quality specialist if you already know who they are and say, hey, we'd like to talk more about the playbook. You can talk with your quality specialist about program goals. There's lots of work you can do before the agreement's on the table, but also to be ready when TA staff contact you to say, hey, we're ready to make this agreement now. Now it's purple, which means I pause.
Yes, and we do have a question. Michael,
Oh,
are you ready
great.
for it? So can you talk a little bit about, a program or an agency that already has an extensive training and technical assistance plan? How would they marry that with this technical assistance agreement?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, I would say you would meet with the quality specialist, make sure everybody knows who everybody is. You'd share your program goals, you'd share your training plan. You'd talk about whether you're getting coaching, planning to get coaching from the CCR&R, or you provide your own coaching. If you've got your internal coaches, then make sure that they know when the community practice is, they know who their mentor coach is, they know if there are upcoming workshops for coaches. Totally, we're interested in, this is a communication document. So if you've got plans, that's great. We just want to make sure everybody knows what they are, everybody knows whose role is, what their responsibilities are, and what ways the quality specialist can help. What way the coaches can help if you're using coaches from the CCR&R. So I want to know if that, how, I'm not sure how to say your name. Is it Marie? I don't know. I'm interested.
Mireille.
Mireille. Oh, okay. Just like it looks.
Yeah.
Mireille, how does that feel? Is that responsive to your question?
I think so. I'm just thinking our plan is I write it, the TNTA plan, and it is based on, we have 6 overarching goals. We have objectives that change and we have sub-objectives, and it's fairly extensive. I think what we're going to be able to do is just communicate, see where we need to add in the pieces that we may not be writing it out specifically. I think that's how we're,
right,
based on what you're saying.
Yep.
Because the coaching, we don't have we have the role, we don't have the name of the person. So I think you're going to want a little bit more written out, but it is, I think, already there. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you. And again, this is not a finger wag. This is a tool to help you and the CCR communicate, coordinate, align your efforts. So thank you. Again, look at the playbook with your staff, think about your program goals, and be ready when the CCR&R staff reach out to you to say, hey, we're ready to talk about technical assistance agreement. That's what you can do now. You're in a watchful waiting for messages from the CCR. about making an agreement. I'll stop there. Thanks so much for your attention.
Thanks, Michael. And I will, I'll cover the next slide, but Michael, while we have you, if you want to fill in, please feel free. So one other thing that we are working toward this year, for those of you that may have participated in ERS assessment this past program year, we are working toward increasing program assessment with a goal of really assisting programs in their own quality goals, working on your own continuous quality improvement, and trying not to use acronyms. Oh, say CQI. And just a reminder that those visits are not monitoring visit. That's not their intention. Information that is specific to your program is not shared with us. Nobody is there to tattle on you if they see you, slipping up in any particular area. We do receive data about Preschool Promise as a program, where we can grow, what we're doing well, where we can improve. And then assessors are required to report, they are mandatory reporters. So if they suspect child abuse or neglect, they will report that. And then they're also required, if they see something that is a serious health and safety concern defined by the Office of Child Care, they would notify Office of Child Care or the Preschool Promise team if you're not, if you're a license exempt program. So there's that little caveat, but in general, the goal of those is to really reflect back to you what they're seeing in your classroom so that you can create some goals based off of that. Michael, what would you add?
I would add Go Mariners. I don't have anything to add there. That was cool.
Great. Lisa asked, are the assessors with TRI or the CCR&R?
I know the answer. It's TRI.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lisa, for asking a question that I know the answer to.
Yes. And then potential licensing violations. So if it's a serious licensing violation, and Dana or Michael, this is my understanding, so jump in if I have a misunderstanding, but if it's a serious licensing violation, they are required to notify Office of Child Care, or if the program is license exempt, they do let Preschool Promise program team know. And then if it is similar to like a CCR&R visit, if it's a licensing violation that they can manage in the moment and use it as an opportunity to improve the program quality, then they'll operate that way. Is that my colleagues' understanding as well? Great. Okay. Gonna switch gears a little bit here and talk about your annual budget and some other fiscal topics regarding Preschool Promise. So this sheet should look a little bit different than last year, but similar process. So new form link. This one pager includes links to all of the relevant fiscal reports and tools. So you'll see the budget form, the draw report, the Preschool Promise calculator, a button to get to EGMs, and then a button to get to the grant manual. It is your annual budget is due within 30 days of amendment execution. So similar to your agreement that you received last year, you'll want to submit that within 30 days after your amendment is executed. Your budget will only include funds for 2022 to 2023. So you don't need to backtrack all the way to July 1st, 2021, thankfully. And then finally, if you have a need to adjust your budget that you already submitted, you can request that. The guidelines for what requires a formal revision are in the grant manual. The deadline for revisions is April 30th, 2023. So that helps us, mitigate the last minute requests and trying to navigate if something is an appropriate request or not. And I see the questions in the chat, but I'm going to just finish up here. The how to get paid. So the The nutshell version is that this is the same payment process, but with a few new links. So the draw report is new for 2022, 2023, same concept, but it's a different link. Don't use the 2021, 2022 link for the draw report. And then the calculator is a fully different, it's a different split this year. So different split between the general fund and the Student Success Act. So you'll want to make sure that you're using the correct calculator when you do make a claim. And that is on the financial guidance document on the previous slide. So what did I miss? Monthly claims would be reimbursement for the prior month or based on the forecast for the current month. If you make a quarterly claim, that's reimbursement for the prior quarter only. All goods and services similar to how it has been since you started as a preschool promise provider or grantee. All goods and services must be paid for and received by June 30th, 2023. You need to be current on all reports and have active insurance on file at the time of funding request. If you need more information, pages 14 to 16 of the Preschool Promise Grant Manual cover financial topics. And then the 2021-2022 draw report is going to be deactivated at the end of this month. So right now, if you look at the Preschool Promise SharePoint site, you will see these links available, and then at the very bottom, small little icon, you'll see the 21-22 links, and those will be there until the end of the month if you needed to make a claim on your prior funds. And then they'll disappear. If you have any issues after that, you'll need to reach out directly to the PSP inbox and we'll get you sorted. But you'll want to submit any draw reports and corresponding EGMS claims for 21 to 22 prior to making that final draw report. I see some questions in the chat and I will respond to what I can. Full disclosure, our grant manager is not available for this meeting, so there may be some things that we have to put on hold. So question, what if I signed the amendment, but then found out I got my expansion slots? When will my total budget be due? So great question. So your budget is going to be due 30 days after your latest execution date. So if you received expansion slots and your amendment is executed on, whatever date, September 18th, your budget is going to be 30 days, due 30 days from that date, not 30 days from your initial amendment. So whatever the most updated, most recent amendment you receive, whatever that execution date is, that's what you're going to use as your marker for that 30-day timeline. Yes, yeah, Crystal. So on that same topic, if Anthony told you to wait to submit a budget to include the funding for your new slots, that's why we're going to use your budget. We want you to use the budget off of the whole picture of your program, including expansion slots, if you are a program that grew after the RFA this year. If there were funds left from program year 21-22, did they roll forward automatically? Yes, they did. And then startup funds be requested and reported for expansion slots. So I believe, Dana, do you know about how, I believe that happened through the application process, but I'm not sure about, do you know about what happened post application for the startup funding requests?
Yeah, and thank you for asking that question. We'll go ahead and connect with our grants and ops team on that, on how we're going to go ahead and want that reported, especially like with the new template and the new budget report. This year is a little bit different, not to go ahead and confuse anybody, just because we are doing like for those who were awarded like expansion slots, like we did a formula now and it's by child. So it's a little bit different than it was on the last RFA, where it was more like a budget that was put together. But as far as like, where are you guys going to go ahead and report that? Let me go ahead and connect with grants and ops and we'll make sure we get an answer back out. Thank you.
Perfect. Katie, I see your question. We have a slide on amendments at the end, so I'm going to pause on that. Greta asked 30 days from amendment or 30 days from expansion agreement. So this is a little bit, I'm going to try to articulate this correctly so I don't confuse anyone. If you expanded this year, you're going to receive an amended amendment. So you have your amendment now with your continuing slots that continue your current slots into 2022, 2023. And then if you expanded, you added additional slots, your amendment is going to get updated. It's going to be an amended amendment, if that makes sense. If you're a brand new grantee, you'll receive an agreement. But if you're a continuing grantee, you'll receive an amendment, and then you'll receive an amendment with a new amendment with your additional slots. Okay. Oni asked a question about the RFA. We submitted a request for expansion slots, had a glitch when the application was submitted. It doesn't seem like it went through. We've sent a couple emails asking for guidance. Who should we reach out to help, since we are going to serve those additional slots? Dana, do you think is the Delk procurement email the best bet for someone who has a question about their RFA application?
Yes, right now, because we're still within this RFA process, that will be the best email to go ahead and ask those questions. Thank you.
Okay, and I just put this in the chat. And I see another question about amendment, and forgive me, I'm going to hold it just until we get to the end and we'll try and answer what we can. Okay. All right, I'm going to move on and pass it off to our program manager, Dana.
Thank you all. I feel like we just gave you a lot of information, so maybe we can go ahead and do a quick little summary of everything that we share. So like first, insurance limits have changed, right? We made some changes, and many of you, just based on like your participation with Preschool Promise, you probably like renew your insurance probably like in the spring. So I think you will be okay, but just remember, if you're doing any kind of like changes with your insurance, we do now have like new limits. Some is specific to in-homes. As far as like in response, over the year, we have heard like, yay, there's great support of the CCRNRs, but who do we connect with? Or CCRNRs wanting to know like, who do we connect at, at this grantee? So now we have this CCRNR and grantee agreement, which everyone's expected to go ahead and fill it out. And it's really in that effort of just connecting you to that local resource and community to go ahead and get assistance with your Preschool Promise quality requirements. We've gone through just a couple of the grant manual has a new cover, and there was only a couple of changes on the grant manual. So just kind of keep an eye on that and make sure you have that. Throughout this program year, you're going to hear us talk a lot about the Preschool Promise playbook, the Preschool Promise quality requirements playbook. So a lot of focus this program year on quality in the classroom, the service that are being provided to the kiddos enroll in the classroom, and ensuring that you have the resources necessary to be successful with the Preschool Promise implementation. So if you haven't downloaded the Preschool Promise quality requirements playbook, please feel free to email us or just go to that Preschool Promise SharePoint, and it's available in English and in Spanish. So it's really just a guide. That playbook is not meant to be a checklist of any sort. Is meant for you to go ahead and use that tool as a reflective tool as you engage with your staff on how is Preschool Promise been implemented in your program. So just go ahead and keep that in mind. Also, just a little bit on the agreement. Also, throughout the year, we heard about like, I have my own coaching system. We have our own staff. There's still opportunity for you all to go ahead and participate with your CCRNR and connect there too. So we really are trying to ensure that you are connected to the resources that are going to help you be super successful, and just be responsive to what we have heard here at the division as far as like, who do I connect? What can they help me with? In all of those resources for you. Let's talk about communication. So we talk about our email has changed, so make sure that you get that updated. But everything's still being forwarded to the new email. So just remember, we have a psb@ode.oregon.gov. We're still going to go ahead and do our bulletin, our weekly bulletin. So please take the time to go ahead and fill out that contact form where we're really gathering information about like who do you want us to go ahead and send that email to, ensuring that everyone has access to the SharePoint site and you have all the different, you can access all the different platforms. As a reminder, we still have our Preschool Promise YouTube channel. With our program, we're a pretty large program. We have a lot of grantees. So please, if you need to go ahead and get a refresher on what about Tia's goal? How do I do EGAMS and some of those pieces? Don't forget, go ahead and check that out. You'll be able to go ahead and see previous recordings to our meetings as well. SharePoint, that is your own little space for you to go ahead and download the grant agreement, the manual, the playbook, who to contact, who's my contact at the hub or the CCRNR. So please make sure that you have access to the SharePoint site. Our meetings tend to be really large. And as I just mentioned, we're going through an expansion, and it looks from the numbers is that we're going to be adding to, or I believe that right now we have around 166 Preschool Promise grantees across the state, and we're about to add another 83 or so to the mix here. So we're super excited about our expansion. So that means that we have to go ahead and become really creative on how to share information with you all. So we are looking to continue to adding like Preschool Promise office hours. So we're trying to go ahead and like schedule that and see how that works. So stay tuned for that, because we know that there are times where you just need to talk to Angela or myself or Anthony or Meredith here at Preschool Promise. So we're looking to go ahead and implement some Preschool Promise office hours, and we're still going to go ahead and continue our Preschool Promise grantee meetings. And we just ask for your grace, as sometimes we're not able to like unmute and do a lot of Q&A. So we're trying to go ahead and figure out different ways that we can go ahead and be responsive. As always, send us an email. If there's ever an emergency that you need to go ahead and get a meeting with myself or anyone, just send us an email. We'll go ahead and make it work. But we're trying to go ahead and get something more planned and scheduled for you all. One thing to go ahead and like remember, which I just forgot, and I apologize. Yes, so as far as like the communication, just make sure that you stay tuned with that. One thing, I noticed that whenever I start talking about like our expansion, people want to know data. So there's a lot of interest in Preschool Promise data. You do a great job at submitting all of your reports and getting that in there. This next program year, we're looking to ways on like sharing back the data out. I have heard from some grantees like, what happens with my monthly report? Like, does it just go into a black hole? Like, how can we see the data? How can we see how other programs are doing with their attendance and some other pieces? So we are working with our data team to be able to share this out, so then you don't feel like you're just sending reports and you're not able to see that data. As far as like our RFA data, we're getting a lot of requests, which is super exciting. We are looking to go ahead and just digest all the information and look at that. We haven't finalized our RFA process, right? We're still in this period of like appeals and some of that process. So just stay tuned, but we are looking to go ahead and share more like data in regards to like our RFA and some of the findings. Okay, next slide. Okay. So waivers, so just a reminder there, all services for Preschool Promise must be provided in person. So there's no more service delivery waivers. We didn't have them this last year. They're not in the future either. So just go ahead and keep that in mind, as far as like everything needs to be provided in person. For current grantees that are not getting expansion slots, you're expected to go ahead and start no later than September 30th. And I'll go ahead and cover a little bit more on the grant amendment and start date and some of those pieces in a later slide. As far as like temporary closures, we know that things happen, any kind of closure does not require a waiver. The expectation is that you make some changes to your calendar to be able to go ahead and meet the 900 hours of instructional time. So just keep that in mind. We know that things happen, especially with our mixed delivery. Sometimes we have programs that need to close due to a family emergency. The key is always to make sure the families are informed and make sure that your early learning hub is informed as well, because they're working, actively on recruiting and, filling out slots. So if there's ever any change in your program, please inform your local early learning hub so they can be informed as they're working with families. Next. And we just talk about, as far as some of that, just COVID-19 for us is in person. One thing, Angela, do you want to add something here to the COVID-19?
Sure. Just, I think most people are aware, but if you haven't checked in with the Early Learning Division, Office of Childcare, on where their current requirements and recommendations are as far as COVID-19 goes, you can just refer back to the ELD website, and the requirements and recommendations are available in English and Spanish. Those haven't changed since April 2022, which I, again, maybe I'm tempting fate here, but I feel like that's the longest we've gone without some shifts in, in requirements and recommendations. So that is where you would, we lean on Office of Childcare as far as what we look to for shifts related to COVID-19. So that is the best place for you to check in on what we're currently practicing as far as Preschool Promise goes.
Okay, next slide. Alrighty, so we talk about expansion, right? So thank you all for, connecting people to the RFA, encouraging maybe your other colleagues to go ahead and apply for the RFA. We had some, great turnout with our RFA. And like I said, we're going to be adding some more grantees, around 83 new grantees. So just feel free. I think collaboration, many of you have been with Preschool Promise since we started. I'm looking at Margie and Lisa, and it reminds me of September 2016. So then when we were trying to go ahead and expand Preschool Promise, so we have come a long way. So thank you all for your collaboration, and be a partner, right? Because we are going to welcome these new grantees with open arms, and I'm sure that your collaboration locally and just sharing best practices stuff is going to go ahead and come in handy. Before I forget, we will be having our annual bilingual kickoff Preschool Promise meeting in October, and that's where we're going to go ahead and have new grantees and existing grantees. So just go ahead and stay tuned for that. We didn't overwhelm our new grantees, and we didn't want you to go through the whole onboarding, so we decided to go ahead and do 2 separate meetings, English and Spanish for both. It's like we have this one for current grantees, and then we're going to have another one for new grantees for a little bit more onboarding information there. And then stay tuned for like our big kickoff meeting. And next slide. Oh, and just a little bit on the expansion. So yeah, we're kind of doing like, if you receive expansion, you'll get an amendment. Well, you have an amendment because it's a continuation, and then you'll get another amendment on top of it if you receive an expansion. So just go ahead and keep that in mind. We receive a lot of emails about like, should I hold off? It looks like I'm on the list to go ahead and get more slots. Our recommendation has been go ahead and sign that and send that back, and then we'll go ahead and do another amendment on that. Okay, next slide. Alrighty, so one thing as far as like the amendment, that was, I will say that for many, that was a little bit confusing when they received that grant amendment, because it was really just extending the current period. So we're really just extending the performance period to June 30th of 2023. And then we're going to be adding some new funding. And I will say that for the numerous emails that we received, it's a little bit confusing when you receive your grant amendment, just because on page 4, I believe it had like a total amount. And then when you went down a couple pages later, it didn't have that. And that's because we're amending, we're really just adding like 21, 23, 21, 22 funds, and then 22, 23 funds all combined. And that's why you see the number, and then later on, it's just going to be for this program year. Any kind of questions on those grant amendments? As you may have heard, we have a procurement office that handles all of this requirements. So any questions, please go ahead and email delk.procurement@ode.oregon.gov. And then there's a little bit more information there about everything that I just talked to. So we can move over to the next slide. Okay, and then one thing, let's go ahead and talk a little bit, and we just got information from our procurement office, so we'll be following up with more information. We've been getting some emails as far as like, I want to start my program and I want to start serving families, and the direction from the ELD to hubs has been is that you need a fully executed agreement in order to go ahead and place children into the program. So we are going to be sending communication here shortly about like, what happens if you do want to go ahead and start your program? What is that guidance? As far as that, we're working really hard. I know that our procurement office, just know that we're in daily communication with them as far as like, when can we get those out? Many of you have already returned your signed grant amendments. So now we're just waiting for the full execution, so that gets taken care of by our procurement office. So they should be able to give us more information on that, but know that we're working really hard. But we are sending some communication here shortly as far as like, but what happens if I want to start my program? As you are aware, we are going to go ahead and do a reimbursement back to any allowable expenses back to July 1st. So we'll be getting more information now that we receive more information from our procurement office on that. So stay tuned on that, and thank you for your patience. I want to be super respectful of your time. So Angela, is there any last minute questions?
There are a few, and I think there's a recurring theme. So just to cover what Dana said, restate what she said, maybe in a little bit different wording. If you received your amendment, or if you haven't received your amendment, there are a few, like a handful of amendments that have not gone out. And we are, as Dana mentioned, requesting daily updates from procurement on when people can expect those. Also, if you received your amendment and you signed it and returned it, it's in progress. Again, we're requesting daily updates. I did hear from our grant manager that the funding is loaded in EGMs, and we anticipate that as soon as it's executed, the time frame between execution and being able to access those funds is going to be very short, fortunately. So there is that. If you haven't received your amendment yet, you're welcome to email PSP. We have a list of people that we're still waiting on updates from procurement on, and I can let you know if you're one of the handful. And then just trying to really quickly, if you have a question about grant manual allowable uses, and kind of like the wiggle room on certain areas that someone asked about, please just send an email over to psp@ode.oregon.gov, and we would send that over to our grant manager, and they can work with you on what's allowable, or there's certain items where like we would request additional information on what you're purchasing in order to approve it. Michael answered the question to Aaron about, is TS Gold still available at a lower cost for Preschool Promise? And yes, it is. The link is in the chat if you're interested. And then Dana, a question about where would we submit a waiver for class size?
Great question. So we'll be launching the new waiver form as soon as final stages. So we hope to go ahead and get that out this next by the end of this week. And just a little bit, thank you for whoever asked that question. So Preschool Promise, like our requirement is that it's 18 children per classroom. But we understand that that there are some cases where the 18 kiddos is just not feasible, either because you have more kiddos that want to be in the classroom, or maybe you're like an in-home and that doesn't make sense. You need a little bit more. You have private pay or other funding. So it's a very simple waiver. So I think that there's been some confusion that Preschool Promise does not allow any more than 18 children in a classroom. While we prefer that, we will allow that. You just need to go ahead and submit a waiver. So please share that with your other grantees, because there's one waiver that we keep seeing kind of coming in, and you know, something for you all to go ahead and just be aware of. The Preschool Promise quality requirements, 18 children, but we understand that there may be some cases where that's just not feasible, and then a waiver is available for that. So thank you.
Yeah. And there's a few other questions in the chat we didn't get to, but we're just going to answer one more since we want to give ourselves 2-minute buffer before our Spanish preferred grantee meeting. Will we receive any meeting notes for this meeting? We will provide all of the slides and the recording link in next week's bulletin. So we always upload the recording to our Preschool Promise YouTube channel, and then always try and provide the slide deck in the Preschool Promise bulletin. So both of those will be available to you by the end of next week.
Do you know about the in-time waiver?
Sorry, we're not going to do any verbal questions since there's several still pending in the chat, but thanks so much. Feel free to send us an email. I'll put the email address in the chat.
So, alrighty, well, thank you all for joining our meeting. Stay tuned for more information as it becomes available, and then we'll go ahead and send the recording and the slide deck as well. Thank you.